thing.
All right.
So I gotta go to my channel. Just do this real quick. Okay. Well, I see us there, so.
Good. Okay.
Hopefully,
Live is,
yeah.
live
willing.
is fine as long as I'm not doing it 3:00 in the morning in England, so I can go live in California. I'm fine. I don't do that anymore. Wait a minute. What does the C stand for?
Okay,
in
so
CW?
I've got my own kind of spiritual belief, my own religion, if you were, called Commonwealth Chanting. So when I came up with, when I was brainstorming ideas for my tag or handle, CW Chanter came to me as being an appropriate nom de plume, nom de tube.
Yeah.
Right? Nom de net.
Well, one does want to call you Chanter, I mean,
That's
it does.
fine. People call me Chanter. You can call me anything you want to. You know what I mean? Just don't call me late for dinner.
There you go. All right.
So we're live, folks, and everything should be going okay. And if people are in the chat, if you hear me and things are not going good or you can't hear the audio, let me know, and we'll be able to respond appropriately. I am here with the Cara St. Louis. I got to tell you, I am very happy about this interview happening. We hit some snags in the road, but I got to tell you that I'm very, very happy that this is happening. I will call this one of my channel highlights.
Cool.
I've followed you for a long time. Obviously, I don't see eye to eye with you on all of your positions, but I respect.
I hope you don't. Yeah, I hope you don't.
I respect your methodology of delivery. Folks, we're gonna get started here, and hopefully everything's going good. My phone is acting a little bit funny. I'll let people know that we've kind of jumped through several technical hoops to make this happening. I've got the Google Hangout started on my computer, yet I'm calling in on my phone. That's the way it goes sometimes.
And I taped something to my leg, and
you gotta do, right?
Gotta do what you gotta do. That's right.
Back in the old days, where you'd have the youngest kid in the household that was designated to hold the rabbit ears.
Yes, they don't remember. My kids don't remember that, but yes, with the aluminum foil on it. With the aluminum foil. Yeah, my dad always did that. He put aluminum on the rabbit ears, but yeah.
I don't know if that actually did anything, but if it was, it did something, right?
Right.
There you go.
All right, so
without further ado, I'm very happy that we have our interview subject here today, and I think we're going to have a very, very interesting conversation. At the outset, I'll say this, is that we're going to take some time at the end to make some special announcements regarding our interview subject and stuff that she's doing currently, and then ways that you can help her in her research, and also just help her in what's going on today. We're all presented with difficulties. Oh, absolutely. We're all presented with life difficulties, and we got to work together to try and overcome them sometimes. So if you like this researcher and you like her work and you want to keep her going and see her and go there, you're going to have an excellent opportunity to get involved. We'll be talking about towards the end of the show. Cara,
thank you.
Can I call you Cara?
Of course you can. Good God.
Of course. At the outset, I'm not going to belabor the point too much, but doing these YouTube videos and kind of doing this project has been a journey, and I've had learning experiences along the way. And one of those major learning experiences, and a learning experience you actually were part and parcel of, was taking responsibility for things that I say online and taking responsibility for learning how to communicate and how to keep lines of communication open.
Right.
When we first started talking about doing this interview, I knew that you had seen some of my work. It turns out that you hadn't seen all of the work. And
you're a bad boy.
I really am. My research came home to roost.
I went, what?
I was excited. I had, you know what I mean? I had my questions ready to go. I was really happy. I was telling people that this interview is going to happen. And then I get an email. Hey, buddy, what's with impugning my reputation in this way, in that form? What's up with talking about me in this style? And I really you know, it goes to show you, folks, what's done in the dark comes to light. As we're moving forward in life, take responsibility for your actions, because your actions will take responsibility for you. And the comeuppance will always happen.
Yeah, Zen Gardner being a great example of that, right?
Well, you know, I would say this. It is a journey. It is a journey. And if I should have one day have this conversation with him,
oh, God.
With him. But I would say, you know, it is what it is. But we're learning.
It is.
I'm learning by doing.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Right.
Thank you for everything that you've said. That's one of my favorite things that you do.
Well,
anyway.
They tell me that in human training school.
Anyway, yeah, you caught some attention of several of us that you must have realized almost right away when you were giving Miles and Carrie an ass kicking over this right 5 minutes after Max Spears died, right? The more you know, Chanter, the more involved you get with everybody who's trying to bring authentic thinking, okay, it's just authentic thinking, you know, to other people in this way, the less free you are, can I say, or the more you have to think about what you say, the reactions that you have, because they have massive repercussions, you know. Yeah, so you were in an enviable position at that point, in that you're just really kind of getting started. Then you're catching fire right now, I think. But so you were able to say some stuff that maybe we all were thinking, you know, but we had to think about whether or not it was worth the price we were going to have to pay to say it, that kind of stuff. Now, maybe that, you know, maybe that casts some aspersions on everybody's honor, but that's not really, it really shouldn't. It's just that that situation was a hand grenade that blew up, and most of us just kind of got really still and said, what the hell's going on, you know, before we started to talk. But you were able to sort of carve out this little sort of incident, which was that show that Miles and Carrie did almost instantly after Max died, which was, I mean, it was just bang out of order, really, in most of our opinions. It was bang out of order, and it was really, I mean, that's how you caught my attention. That's how you caught Thomas Sheridan's attention. I don't know who else is talking to you now, but I would assume Randy Moggins knows who you are. I mean, you're getting a little buzz out there, which is good, because your show has a tremendous amount of potential. There's not tons of stuff going on in the States. The States is, I've said this before, it's on information lockdown in a very real way. It's difficult, really difficult in this sort of free speech, arena to say anything of any substance and have anyone hear it. You know what I mean? So, that was really, I thought that was really good work. That was really good work. And anyway, so I expect us to have a really good conversation. And I know that you're, even if you disagree with me, and I know you do, and that's fine. You should not, no one should, you should never just buy anything anybody says whole, just swallow the whole fish. Oh yeah, because you think somebody's, I don't know, got a personality that you resonate with, or whatever. You never swallow anything whole, guys. You should always think about what everybody's saying. And I wouldn't trust you if you agreed with everything I am putting out there. I have invited you. I don't know what your situation is, but Maria Wheatley and I are doing, I'm so excited. We're doing a lecture at the Rudolf Steiner House in London on the 24th of February. She's bringing ancient cultures, I think focusing on Druidry, and I'm bringing the Fae, man. And I know the Fae is like one of those, woo, I don't know how you feel about that one. I don't want to talk to you about the Fae tonight, okay? But
okay, Tanner, if
one of these days we will, though. One of these days we will.
I'm sure.
But you're more than welcome at that lecture. That might be kind of cool for you. I don't know. You got kids and a job just like the rest of us. But anyway, so yeah, so let's talk about some stuff. And I know that it's just going to be a nice conversation, which is my favorite kind of interview, really.
I think that's the way to go, because people have you have opportunities to present your material, and so hopefully maybe coming at it from a little bit of a more informal angle will allow it to go in different directions, and maybe people will get some different takes on it. We were talking about the show, and I want to share something with you. Part of what's happening with CW Chanter is that my skeptical self has been rocked by a couple of events. And one of the amazing events was I did a regression session with a practitioner by the name of Hank Jones. And there's some things that I learned in that session, and there's some things that kind of came to me in the afterglow. And one of the things that came into me in the afterglow is, there's a lot of talk about, people in programs, my labs, super soldiers, these things.
Right.
And it occurred to me, because you have a background in education, that if you went through the American education system, you were in a program. Right?
Globally, it's every state-run education system, every curriculum is a programming. It is behavior modification. It is Pavlovian, all of it. Right. So, yes, you have been programmed if you are, but we can, because I know that your audience is mostly American, and that's great. We can stick to America. Yes, if you've gone to an American state school, you have been under massive programming. You've been under massive programming since at least 1850. And this was the Prussian education system, which was developed as a response to the Battle of Jena in 1805, when Frederick Wilhelm, I think it was the second, lost the Battle of Jena to Napoleon. Napoleon with his amateur army, and Prussia with their machine, their devouring machine that really just sort of rampaged around Europe, eating countries, and they were actually in a way kind of for hire. You were actually more likely to be killed by your superior in a Prussian military unit than an enemy. Okay, that's what they were like. Anyway, so when they lost to Napoleon, absolutely would not do, and so there was I'm going to say the Jesuit now. So you might call me on this, because I'm still looking for the absolute proof, knowing that we probably won't necessarily find a smoking gun. But the thing that I had never brought into this equation until recently was that Clement XIII had the Jesuits banned. He was so scared of them. And then Napoleon had one of the popes in prison. It was Pius X. When Pius X was released from the Napoleonic prison, he hightailed it back to wherever he came from and resurrected the Jesuits to be the attack dog of the Vatican. Now, at that point, the Jesuits became absolutely fundamentally involved in every form of education, particularly at the university level, and that is in fact still the case. I mean, that is definitely verifiable, easily verifiable. Okay, but they came into a real forceful position at just about the same time that the Prussian education system was rolled out in Prussia, which would have been Pius X was let out of prison in 1815. Okay, I can't help but see a real connection there. I just have to find, if I can find a smoking gun, I will. But as you know, I feel very strongly, and many people have spent lifetimes demonstrating that our history is fabricated, and all of the dates and places may be wrong or misconstrued or used for, control purposes. Therefore, we can just talk about the education system right now. I want to, as a teacher, which I love to talk about. I'm a Waldorf teacher, and if anybody out there has any idea what that pedagogy is, very much relies, in fact, it exclusively relies on delivery of the material orally. We do not have textbooks. The children make their own textbooks as we go through the year, and the curriculum is set up, the pedagogy is set up to keep both hemispheres of the brain talking to each other, which sustains the imagination. And additionally, we bring everything from the whole to the parts, which means what they get first is context. And one of the things that the Prussian education system, combined with the Industrial Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, but really it was the magnates, Ford, people like that, who brought about this plan, really, to separate people from context. Okay, because if you don't have context, you don't know what the hell you're arguing, CW. You don't. You can't. How can you defend yourself if you have no context? So to take people away out of context, which is one of the main things of the Prussian education system, the main thrusts of the Prussian education system, disempowered people, and the industrial magnates didn't want an empowered working force. So what better way to disempower them than to divorce them from the context of the world they're living in? And then, boy, you have a vacuum that you can fill with anything. You know what I mean? Once you realize what you can do.
So is the lack of the context in the Prussian system, is that the rote learning, the here's all this data, absorb all this data as is, read it, memorize it, or is it something different?
Well, what it is having to take is specialized classes. Ouch. Sorry, I cut my finger. Specialized classes, specialized teaching, specialized, you know, you have say you're in high school or middle school now. Wasn't that way when I was a kid, because, you know, that's one of those things where you can say, that's a good story, Grandma. Anyway, right? But you have a special teacher for history. You have a special teacher for certain aspects of sociology. You have a certain teacher for anthropology. You have a certain teacher. I studied comparative religions in high school, which was more of a contextual kind of class, but those things are a thing of the past. You specialize in different areas, and no one teaches you how they join up. For example, history should be about context. It should be about roads that we travel to get to a certain place, and sometimes those places are surprising. I can't remember the exact, because we'll talk about it at some point. But there is a direct link between obviously there's a direct link between the Reformation and the Puritans going to the United States, right? So if you can go back to that, go back all the way to the Reformation, and not just say, for example, pick up the Puritans and just say to people, well, they were under religious persecution, and so they came to the United States. Oh yeah, okay, but it goes much, much, much farther back than that, and the ramifications are wide. They're huge. They're global, and they're still reverberating. The Reformation, the anti-Reformation. I mean, all of these things that the children don't see as cause and effect. They see as separate incidents, you know. And yes, you're right. In terms of rote memorization of dates and things like that, that's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. There are very few dates that matter. You can talk about something very important and give a beginning date and an end date and maybe a date in the middle, maybe, but the dates really don't matter. So drilling children in dates and places and names and things like that, that's also an inculcation. It's like you're hooking them up rhythmically into your beat. Right. But that's not education.
Right, and it seems to be getting worse, because the latest trends in American education involve this training, what's often called as teaching to the test, where you're not really educating them at all. You're just basically the agenda is
right. Yeah, teaching to the test. But I'll tell you something.
Multiple choice tests.
Yeah, that has been going on, and because I don't live in the United States, I have a hard time, you know, sort of trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about in terms of where we're at with that. But I do know that several states have, or at least counties and cities, have completely blown off Common Core, which is great, because that was one of the greatest insults to children's brains that ever came down the pike. And teachers weren't sleeping at night for having to deliver this kind of stuff. So I know that there's a big backlash against Common Core. I also know that many universities are not accepting the SATs anymore. For example, my oldest kid went to NYU. They, when they were doing their indoctrination, did I just say that? When they were doing the very beginning part of them coming to school and learning things in a group, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, the teachers, the professors, actually just flat out told them, don't bring any of that crap that you learned at high school here We don't want it here. It has nothing to do with what we're doing here. You know, you're learning to take your SAT. Flush it. We don't want it. Okay, so that's, I think, to me, that's kind of progress. It's progress, but it doesn't stop the high schools from teaching that way, because their funding is dependent on that, and because people have been trained like monkeys, to think that that's how you evaluate your child's intelligence, your child's ability to get along in the world, your child's ability to take up or a profession, anything. Here's a good example, okay? Oh, go ahead. All right, you want me to say? Good example, here's one. Surely you must remember that there was a time not too long ago when our president was saying that it was absolutely imperative that children get access and training to computers by the age of 4.
I think I do remember that.
Do you remember that? Okay. I've spoken to groups of parents many times, and I've said, okay, when was the last time you were in a job interview? And they asked you, now look, Chanter, I just need to know that you had computer by the age of 4. No one cares, right? No one cares. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just about accessing a child when they're very open and vulnerable, making them passive. There are neurological pathways that then bond to this, literally to this computer, instead of becoming coming online as an independent thinker, as a self-contained individual. You bond very passively with the computer. That's what that's about, gang. That's all that's about.
So let me ask you this, ask the question directly. Does something like Common Core happen because of incompetence in the system, lack of quality educators, or is it an agenda? Is it happening on purpose?
Well, listen, you know who comes, and this is something I want everybody out there to think about this, because for the longest time, no one has actually thought about this question. Who develops the curriculum? Who approves the textbooks for this country? Do you know? Most people don't.
I have no idea.
99.9% of the people in this country don't know, because it's really not been out there. Who comes up with the textbooks? Who develops and okays the curriculum for schools? Guess what? It's the Council on Foreign Relations. The CFR is where all that comes from. That's where that comes out. Now, my speculation is that this is a planned agenda. Yes. Because otherwise, you know, yes, that's who does it. I mean, it's an interesting question, though, isn't it? We never think about that. Who the hell, wait a minute, who decides what goes into a sociology book and says it's okay and it's true and it's authentic and it needs to be taught at the age of 14? No one knows, right?
I often don't ask the questions. Lord knows when I was in high school, I barely opened the books, let alone
ask good for you.
The question of who put the material in there.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Because I'll tell you what, listen, my 2 youngest children especially, all of the, you know, okay. My 2 youngest children, in the end, said, Mom, can I stop doing this? And I said, yes, get out. Get out of there, because they had to go to a state school. We just didn't have any other options other than coming out of that. They're both artists. My youngest son is a very talented film editor. He's been editing films since he was about 15. I said to him, don't go to film school, dude. I don't even want you to go to college. You have such a great vision, and you have such a brilliant mind and such a great sense of humor. Don't spoil it by going to film school or the university, you know? And my daughter is an artist, a visual artist, and she is just like 100% art. And and it's not just the artists, okay? It isn't just the artists. Children, yeah, anyway, go ahead, ask me a question.
So so you find yourself, well, many people do find themselves on the back end of going through the American education system or the British education system or wherever. You're told to go to middle school. You got to do good in middle school, so you'll do well in high school. You got to do well in high school, so you'll get into a good college. You got to do good in college, so you'll get a nice job.
Yeah.
Sometimes more and more now, people are finding themselves directly experiencing that is a lie and
Oh,
dissatisfaction with the results.
it's utter bullshit. It's absolute utter bullshit. Mostly what we've mostly what's happened to us is we've been enslaved by the student financial aid system, and that's been a big part of what this is all about. Okay, it's not that our administration or our government wants to make sure everybody has access to a public university education or a university education of some kind. It's that they want them all indebted up to their eyeballs. Okay, that's really what it's been all been about, in my opinion. And I think that there are a lot of people who are writing that, economists, sociologists, if they are of an authentic nature and outside the box kind of nature. University students in other countries don't owe money for this kind of stuff. They don't have to use this kind of money because universities aren't as expensive as they are here. Okay, there are universities all over Europe that will accept any student from anywhere for a free education. Norway is one. Finland is one. You want to go to Europe? You want to go to Europe? Let me tell you something. The minute you set foot out of this country, it becomes glaringly apparent that we are wrapped in cotton wool, and we have no idea what's going on out there, man. I'll tell you, my daughter came to visit me a couple of years ago, and she was only with me she's an adult now, so she has some sort of, ability to critically observe and take things in. And so she was only out for a few hours when she called her dad. She said, "Dad, you have no idea what's going on out here." I mean, we're just completely, the continents are cut off from each other. And again, this is very much on purpose.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, public education, university education, where did that question start? Can I tell you a funny story? This
Sure.
is about my oldest son, the one I said you remind me of. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I said he's 20 years younger than you, but you really remind me of my oldest son. That's the one that went to NYU. He's an actor, and he will tell you that there are more NYU graduates working at 7-Eleven and flipping burgers. Do you know what I mean? It's meaningless.
Absolutely.
It's freaking meaningless, guys. It really is. Okay. Anyway, when he was in middle school in Maine, we were getting calls from the school a lot on that one. It wasn't clear whether he was going to be the president or he was going to, anyway, it just wasn't clear, man. And when he was in middle school, we were kind of doing a lot of praying. But anyway, so I get one of my calls from the principal, and it turned out, and I was horrified at the time because I was not nearly as awake, that he had taken one of those standardized tests that you give him in middle school, right? Mm-hmm. And after every damn answer, like hundreds of questions, he had written, "I am a fish." That's how he had taken the test. And I thought the principal was going to have a stroke. And right. I was like, oh my God. But now it's one of my proudest stories of his childhood, that he took that test and wrote, "I am a fish," after like hundreds of questions. Yes.
Well, we might have something in common, because I'll tell you a funny story from my end. In high school, there are many people who put, when they got 100% on the test, and they want to put that up on the refrigerator wall.
Yeah.
I once got 1 on a test because I had flunked the entire math exam. They asked one extra point question about something like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some historical thing.
Yeah.
And I got that 1 right. And so I got a 1, and I immediately came home and put it up on the refrigerator wall. And my dad came home and thought my mom had put it up as some sort of, to warn him, like, you got to talk to your son about this nonsense.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I put it up there. And he's immediately, he was dumbfounded. He was like, why do you think this is good? I go, how many kids are out there getting 100s? A lot. Who gets a 1? Right? That's hard to do.
Yes. Yeah. So these are the, in my view, these are the sparks that are lifeline.
Oh, let's see. Oh, let's see. You're still up there, so. Uh-oh. Let's see what's going on. Oh. You're back. My phone is being weird, so hopefully people will tell me if there's any. We can barely hear you. Don't worry about it, as long as you can hear her. Can you hear me, Cara? My phone is being a little funny. Oh no. Oh, don't let this happen. Hold on. Amazing story too. Let me do this. Cara, I think you're muted, unfortunately. Can you unmute? This is the worst. This has got one funny story out of it. Let's see what's going on here. Oh my gosh.
Okay, am I muted now?
Can you hear me now? You're muted. Unmute.
All right, now.
Whatever you touch, just that.
How did you mute me from there?
I have, my phone is possessed by the devil.
Wow, you're magic. Okay, well, that's okay.
Okay, so listen,
anyway,
that's okay as long as they.
So I will tell you.
Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
I will tell you though that every time I see something like this in a child, I know that the fun-loving, otters of the universe that these children really are is still in there, And so while, you got to use some discernment as to how much you celebrate what they just did so it doesn't cause problems for them in the future. But I dig that kind of stuff. And there was a time as well when my youngest one, I discovered that he had taken this essay that he'd written on the owl in 5th grade, and he'd rolled it out for 5 years, man, and just made it a little bit different for every year. It was like his brother and sister were like, oh, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. I can't believe you got away with that. But, I love stuff like that. I really do, as long as every other indicator is that they're becoming people, This is what we this is the fight right there. That's the fight. It's the imagination versus the box that they're constantly trying to it's like chasing a spider around with a plastic cup, right? You got to root for the spider and hope they don't catch him with a cup. Anyway, so education, yes. I will talk to you about, because you said I could.
Absolutely.
Let me run you through what I think is the capturing of the human child at this point, okay? It starts with childbirth, I have to say that I had not necessarily what you might call totally traditional childbirths, but certainly my children were not born in a bathtub or anything like that, unfortunately. But the reality is children are born, and oftentimes their son had a critical cord, so he was struggling for a while. Had he not been born in a hospital, he probably wouldn't have made it. So I have to say that. I have to concede my opponent in that way. It's always, well, you have a legal education. Surely they taught you about conceding the opponent and how, that's very, it makes you a sort of a genuine orator. You can always concede your opponent. Anyway, so the hospital, yeah, my oldest son was born in, and he was struggling. So they put one of those little monitors in the top of his head, while he was still in there. And that is a bad thing. That's a really bad thing. But what are you going to do when you're giving birth? So anyway, so when a child is born, they immediately clamp the cord and cut it, which means 60% of the blood you should have in your body is still not in your body. Okay? You leave that placenta until it's empty, and then you have all the blood in your body you're supposed to have. So that's the first assault, okay? Second assault is that when a baby can see far enough from the breast milk to the mother's face, I'm sorry, they can. But what's the first thing they do? They put goop in their eyes, so they can't bond visually with their mother. Now, I will say that when I'm presenting these conclusions, what I'm saying is I'm presenting conclusions based on research that I have done, which you may or may not agree with as being biologically true. But that's fine. These are my conclusions, okay? With substantiated evidence. Babies, goop eyes can't see you. They take them away from you almost immediately, scrub everything off, and wrap them up. What about the bonding What about the bonding that has to do with smell and just all of this stuff that goes with birth? Okay, that's gone. Then they measure them, they weigh them, they prick their heel, not because there's anything missing in in an infant, but because they're categorizing their DNA. They're getting a sample of their blood, and it's all identifying the stock for the warehouse. Okay, I'm sorry to put it that way, but really that is the way it is, in my opinion, in my conclusions. So there's that. The birth should be a completely different experience, and could be a completely different experience than what it is. And that's when they first start, that is when they first start to experiment with severing a child from its bonding with its mother or father. Okay, the job one is to get the child away from bonding with its nuclear family. Okay, that's been on the agenda with the Frankfurt School and with the Tavistock Institute rollout since before the 20th century. Okay, take the child away from its parent, especially, I'm going to hear about it on this one, but especially from the authoritarian father figure and the nurturing mother figure. I can't wait to see the comments on that one. Especially when I say stuff like that, I'm always, as a woman who grew up in the 60s and 70s, I'm always like looking over my shoulder immediately, because I know that I'm going to get it for stuff like that. However, I now feel that
Don't
way.
worry. On this channel, they're too preoccupied with accusing me of being a Jew.
Oh,
Jew
oh,
shit.
oh. Oh, all right.
That's
Okay, well,
part of the Zionist agenda. I'm sent here by the Frankfurt School.
So they think you're involved in the Frankfurt School. Okay, well.
Everything. Pick
a school if you're Jewish, or if you're, yeah, I know. Anyway, so separate the child from its nuclear family. That creates a vacuum, and you get to fill that vacuum with whatever you want. And since there aren't any authority figures in or properly inserted into this child's life, you get to put the military in, you get to put the government in, you get to put the school in. Have you ever, of course you're an attorney, you heard the words in loco parentis, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
This is what the school is, in loco parentis. Well, who said? Who the hell gave them the right? They have no right to do that. They have no right at all. It's not it's a legal fiction. It's a legal fiction. Come on. Come on. Okay. Anyway, so you take away what the human being comes in and needs to become a complete and whole human being in the early years, 0 to 7. There's a big transition between 7 and 9, and you fill it with the state. And then what you have is brainwashing of the most thorough order, because what they want is a citizen. Now, I find no positive connotations to the word citizen anymore. Okay, I just don't, because it's not what it's not the flag, it's not the red, white, and blue, it's none of that garbage. Plato said, I think originally, that all children should be educated simply to be in service of the state. Why? But I would love someone to answer that question for me. Why? Well, in the 20th century, it looks like we're cannon fodder, especially in the United States.
Right.
The United States is the military arm of the world. I'm married to a German, okay? He's just really post-World War II, born in 1953. And, you go to Germany and you go to Europe, and the American presence is everywhere. We are on every freaking corner in Germany, yeah? And they do complain about that a lot. And I say, so why don't they just kick us out? Why don't you just kick us out? Seriously. Well, there are relationships, There are relationships. I mean, come on. This is the Stockholm Syndrome.
Quite possibly. Yeah? Then you get into the questions. It's a combination platter of chicken or the egg, which came first, and who's pulling the strings, and how do things get all, intertwined. And
right.
Then you get into, as we were talking about earlier briefly, then you start having to ask questions about what have you been taught about why things are interconnected, or what the history is, or why, they say that the victor writes the history books. But it
Yeah,
seems as though when we're talking about, like, when you come on the other end and you start trying to analyze things, deconstruct things, you have all sorts of questions. I think that's why you have so many people today that are going around saying the earth might be flat.
oh, for God's sake. Yeah.
I agree, but the motivation seems to be, or one of the causal agents seems to be, is you've discovered that they lied to you about JFK. They lied to you about Vietnam. They lied to you about 9/11. They lied to you about why they went into Iraq. And then you start asking yourself, well, if they lied to me about that, lying to me about. And we were talking,
Right.
one of your key research points is we're going into this, what people commonly call false chronology, the notion that the history that we've inherited or have been taught to us might really be a fabrication.
Well, let me start with, since we brought it up, because it does come up all the time now, and understandably so, is this flat earth stuff. Without actually going into what I actually think about it, I can say that my conclusion, my opinion about what that is that the false chronology, which is complex, and I welcome all these opportunities I have to talk about it, Chanter, because talking about it out loud with people who are asking questions is a great way to sort it out. You know what I mean? And we can't be afraid to sort things out. Okay, so however, one of the ways, and there are two ways, but one of the ways that science is the most scientifically valid, if you will, for those who believe, who are looking for their validation in that area, and that's fine. That we date times and incidents and events by predictable astronomical occurrences, whether it's eclipses or comets or patterns of the constellations moving, we think, or appearing to move. These are the things, the predictable astronomical events is how we locate ourselves in events in history and in space and time. This is predicated on a spherical astronomy, which, by the way, basic astronomy is just trigonometry. It's not particularly, it's not astrophysics. It's not any of that stuff. It's just trigonometry. It's ellipses and we're, and tracking the patterns of things. And, sometimes you get into, if you really get into it, you're talking about effects of gravity on, one planet to the next, and, that sort of thing. But it basically, what it comes down to is that it's spherical astronomy. All right. Also, it's very much 3D and 4D if you're including time, if you consider time to be the fourth dimension, which most people do. What happens when you are putting out a flat Earth theory? Well, what you're saying is is not heliocentric, is it? No, it's anyway. What you're saying is standard astronomy is wrong. You're saying that it's absolutely incorrect. Throw it out the window. So there's no way to verify this false chronology thing astronomically or mathematically if you do that. The other thing is we have a global population, for the most part, who is used to being glued to 2D, the screen in front of you right here. Yeah, right here, right here. Right. It's all 2D, isn't it? So convincing them that you have a flat Earth, a 2D situation. Well, it's not. Do you know what I'm saying, though? Convincing them that the Earth is flat. Yeah, it makes sense. Right? It would be very, very easy. And not only that, but this is one of those. This is one of those events, one of those issues that has been. What I don't like about it mostly is it's been so damn divisive. People get pissed off. People start calling each other names, One of my very favorite people I used to watch a lot was Santos Bonacci. I really loved his, my God, but he has become such a raving asshole since he's become a flat earther. He just, I finally sent him a note. I said, you know what? I loved your work. I absolutely love what you did before you did this flat earth thing. But, you are so freaking nasty now. I will never listen to another thing that you have to say. And I mean that. unless he just does some kind of genuine, authentic, you know, oh my God, has one of those moments. But this goes back to the original thing I was saying, Chanters. You have to be, when you have a presence and that you've worked your ass off to get people to listen to what you have to say, you can't just go off, you know? The more known and visible you are, and the more you have earned people's trust in terms of listening to what you have to say, the less license you have to just react. And that was a really difficult lesson for me, because I'm extremely choleric, and I do go off, you know, I do go off. And so, you know, this learning curve that you're talking about, being in the public eye like this, trying to get people together, trying to get people to listen to what you have to say, it's a massive learning curve. It is hugely humbling, and it throws you into a constant state of self-reflection, which is actually great. It's cool.
Right.
But you have to be not humble. I don't like the word humble, because you know what? Humble is just being teachable. That's all it is. Being humble is being teachable. That's it, bottom line. You just have to be open enough to realize that you're evolving. You're evolving, and you got to say you're evolving, and maybe sometimes you're wrong, and that's okay, which is why I like these conversations. I know people bitch at me sometimes because it seems like I flip from subject to subject. Even my children, they're like, stop, 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 stop. But the reality is these conversations are so fruitful. You just sit down and talk to somebody, you know?
Well,
somebody who's got good questions.
There's also this notion of, like, you know, warts and all. Sometimes people comment on what I do, and I just say that it's me being authentic. It's me not trying to be a presentation or a show or quote unquote professional. So there's a speed style to what you do, and it goes from subject to subject. I go off. There are plenty of times when it's 4 o'clock in the morning in a Google Hangout, I just I wake up in the morning. It's like the only thing that people remember.
See,
it went off the rails.
See, that's right. That's it. That's the thing. I mean, I have to admit, I enjoy it. I'm just like, whoa. But I also know, from bitter experience that, yeah, it's like, but that's what I've said to you a couple of times now. I just love the fact that you're just genuinely, authentically out there in public trying to up your game.
Right.
And like, nah, that's got to be a little bit different. And how would that be? And you know what? I'll tell you what, since Max died, a lot of us are evaluating what we're doing, how we're doing it, what our relationships are to each other, being responsible, trying to be responsible about what comes after, you know. I was talking to Randy Moggins the other night about this, because he's a really good friend of mine, and I trust him. And so we were talking about the visuals of what we're doing right now, because I have a lot of things going on right now, as you know. I love talking to people like this. I love having conversations with people who ask good questions, or just, you know, who are interested in the subjects that I'm interested in. I suppose that's selfish, but yeah, I really like it. And just talking to people, I could talk to my own foot for an hour if I was given the chance to do so. So I just like talking. So, but I'm also doing some stuff that's visual. I'm filming some stuff. I'm filming a little vlog now called 13. I hope you're looking at it, because I want everybody who's doing this kind of thing to be looking at for each other, you know, and saying, oh, or yeah, okay, I get that, or, you know. But Randy and I were talking about RT, for example. RT is a really good example of the kind of thing that we're analyzing, that we're trying to be aware of. When RT first came out, oh my God, I was so excited. I thought, great, super, something's coming out of Russia, and it's, you know, it seems to be authentic, and that's awesome. It's wonderful. And then it started to get a little slicker, you know. And I thought, well, okay, huh? I don't know. Slick, what does that actually mean? I mean, this people are starting to look like hairdos, right, on the news. And then they put Larry King on, man, and I thought, okay, okay. So now what we got is CNN, I mean, come on. So there's you look at this stuff and you look at the stuff you're doing, and one of the things I'm really thinking about right now is how do people learn and how do people remember what it is they need to remember, you know, and this just goes with my teaching and stuff. But I was actually lecturing in Vienna about 6 months ago at a conference for government-sanctioned child abduction, which basically means social services, right? And I was lecturing with another fellow who's actually an attorney, and I can't remember, I swear to God, why can't I remember this guy's name? He's such a good guy. Anyway, he'd been hired by the country of Sweden to investigate a sinking of a ferry that actually, in a lake, that actually ended up carrying a massive amount of arms on it. And because he was bringing what he actually thought to light as an attorney instead of being their guy, you know, they ruined him. And so now he's doing other things. He's speaking about transhumanism. He's speaking about those sorts of things that happen. Okay. Anyway, what I was doing when I lectured, I was now putting a visual behind it. It felt kind of hypocritical to not like ask people to use their imaginations. Okay, so I thought, you know, I'll give that a try. However, what he said to me was, look, you got to put something behind you when you're giving a presentation because that engages their subconscious. So what I do now is when I give a lecture and I put something behind me, I actually tell that story and I tell people that is what's going on. This is an attempt to engage your subconscious, and you must know that. You must know that. You must be aware of that, okay? So these are the things, I mean, how do things look? How do we present them? Are we being responsible? Are we being authentic? You know, that's over and above the material that we're bringing, you know. I just bring the material that I find to be true. In my opinion, this material is true. When it comes to the false chronology, I'm just extremely lucky, Chanter, because it's been, oh my God, it's been discovered and researched by the top minds in, you know, universities all over Russia. The guy who's putting this out, you know, is an extraordinarily credentialed mathematician, astronomer, and statistician in Russia. And he's got a cadre of hundreds of people working on this now. And so he can, to those who want it presented that way, assess that you yourself could recreate if you wanted to do so. This is the most scientifically grounded piece of information I've ever come across. So on the one hand, I'm trying to do that. On the other hand, I'm doing the Fae. So I'm a little schizophrenic right now. However, this guy Erhard Landmann in Germany, who's been doing the etymological research on the Fae since the early 70s. He's one of those John Nash characters, man. You know, he sees these patterns and then he puts them down so that you can see his little journey and his little trail. And etymology is a substantial scientific endeavor in terms of cultural analysis. It just is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so
I have found etymological research that points extremely heavily and strongly toward the existence of this people that I'm trying to prove, okay? Anyway, what I discovered a couple of days ago was that Erhard Landmann also wrote about the false chronology. How do you like that?
No, I've been following your vlog, the 13, so I know you were talking about that. My goal, one of my goals with that vlog is to make sure I understand the material in a way that can be presented understandably and solidly. And, you know, it's really difficult for people to get their brains around this idea that all of history for 1,000 years, since the year 900 really, is a lie. It's bullshit. That Jesus the Christ, if he were a character, I'm saying that for the people who, you know, because I don't want to be political about this, but this character and these events of Jesus the Christ, he was a medieval character at best, based on astronomical events that would have happened at that time. Okay, I mean,
There's a lot. There's a lot. And so, but because the timeline and history is how we locate ourselves in time and space, period. Okay, past, present, future. Yes. This is causing massive amounts of cognitive dissonance, and I don't want it to. I want to, the first episode that I wrote in the workbook was about the false chronology, and I did it so that I could try to make a thing that they could, that the broadest possible audience could connect with. Yeah. But I think it's going to take a little bit more work, man. I think it's just going to take a little bit more work, and that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. Can you do us a favor? Like, because I've been following what you've been talking about, and based on, in preparation of this interview, I was following up on some of, like, look, just, doing the simple Wikipedia research to get the ball rolling. Is there a way to thumbnail the false chronology theory for the audience at home who may be?
I can certainly try. Yeah. Let me try. Okay. Okay. I'm going to have to give you a bit of a history for it rather than a statement of a thesis statement. Okay. And that's okay. I wish I could give you a thesis statement. It would be a good thing if I could. I'm working. Yes. And this is according to Landman as well. One of the popes, who was it? Which one was it? I can't remember now. Do you remember? One of the popes. Gregory, duh. Okay, it was Pope Gregory, duh. Pope Gregory, when he became Pope, he discovered that it was difficult for him to celebrate Easter because the dates were a mishmash, in his opinion. And there was no way to locate Easter in time and space for him. And so what he did, because he wanted Easter to be on a certain day in a certain year, that particular year, is he hired 2 Jesuit monks, Scaliger and, Petau. His name was Petau. He styled himself Dionysius Petavius. So it was Josephus Scaligarius, because that made you smarter if you made your name, if you Latinized your name, and Dionysius Petavius. And even now you will hear people refer to Josephus. Josephus has said this. Josephus has said that. Okay, that's Scaliger. That's Scaliger. And this was the mid 1500s that they were hired to rewrite history to the extent that and such that Easter could be when Pope Gregory wanted it to be. Okay. Now there's all kinds of stuff to talk about when it comes to Easter. Okay, because there's a lot of sort of Vatican sorcery involved there, but I'm not going to go into that this time. We can do that next time. Right. Anyway, so what they did was take original documents, I suppose, write the history the way Pope Gregory wanted it written. He could remake the calendar, adding days here and half days there, and in the end it was 0.0075 years difference between one year and the next when he changed the Gregorian calendar from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Okay. He had his reasons for doing that, but what ended up happening was all of the, or most of the original documents have been destroyed. You can't get them anymore to check the veracity of the timeline. Okay, there was a period in time, they were Jesuits, and there was a period in time when all of a sudden new dynasties started appearing on the timeline that had never existed before, and what they did was they just stretched time. They inserted, because how would you know, right? They inserted an extra 1,000 years to justify various things. And I think that the powers that be saw an opportunity. Okay, they saw an opportunity to have things be the way they wanted them to be. And there were, marauding pretenders to the governmental power who took advantage of this. And in Fomenko's work, he does list the dynasties that started to come out of nowhere that had never existed before. And all of a sudden in this revised chronology, there they were. Okay, this is what the chronology was changed to do. All right, there are lots of characters added to the chronology that never existed. Charlemagne was a fiction. Okay, Charlemagne never existed. And what cracks me up about that, okay, is that there's this thing called the Charlemagne Prize in in Europe. And almost every United States president has won the Charlemagne Prize. And the Charlemagne Prize is handed out to the person who does the most to create a one world, a global government. Okay? All right. Anyway, these are the kinds of things that you find in the false chronology that you discover based on the evidence that Fomenko puts forth as to why these things are false. These things never happened. These things never existed. Okay? It's easy, I think, to look back at the 20th century, especially if you're my age, and sort of understand we were lied to about Vietnam, and we were lied to about this, and we were lied to about that. It's easy to look at the 20th century and be very cynical about the history. And yes, it's true. Well, yes, it's true that it can be said that the victor writes the history, or victors write history, but a slightly imprecise way to put it, I think. I think people write history to pronounce themselves the victor, whether they were or not. Do you know? That's what's happened. It hasn't happened the way you think it has. It's happened that history has been written so that victors, if you will, can be set up as victors who have no legitimate claim to thrones, who have no legitimate claim to territory, who have no legitimate claim to political systems. Okay, that's what that's all about. And if you think about that, really just let that sit with yourself, you can understand how easy that would be. Now, how were they busted? Well, let me tell you this. Isaac Newton was their contemporary. Johannes Kepler was their contemporary. They both knew what was going on. They both knew it was a lie. The last book that Isaac Newton wrote was in challenge of the Scaligerian timeline. Okay? Now, Isaac Newton had his issues just like everybody else. However, that was the last thing he chose to do with his life, was challenge the timeline. Johannes Kepler said that, wait a minute. Yeah, Johannes Kepler said that the timeline scared the hell out of him. I'm paraphrasing that, of course, but he said there's nothing authentic about this timeline. This is nothing but frightening. I don't know what this is. Okay? There was and then there was a fella in Russia. His name was Mozarov, and he died, I think, in the 30s or 40s or 50s. He was kind of a turn of the century, 19th century character, and he was an astronomer and a mathematician. And he noticed that there's something had happened to the orbit of the moon, the way the moon behaves. I'm going to put it that way. Something happened to the way the moon behaves for a period of about 300 years that was absolutely inexplicable, and actually it seemed to have sped up, because it would have had to have gone a whole lot faster in order to justify all of the historical events that were associated with the passage of time. Okay? There was a fellow called, what was his name? Robert Paul. There's a fellow associated with NASA. I'm sorry, you're catching me out on that one, but there's a fellow associated with NASA who is actually still lecturing right now, who has determined that what happened there was there's a function of gravity that we just don't understand. There's some unknown quality of the gravitational field that we have not discovered yet that accounts for that. Okay, Butteroff did, and what Fomenko was, remove the perturbations of the moon for that 300 years, and lo and behold, the timeline leveled itself out. Okay, there were either mistakes in the timeline, or there were mistakes in the astronomical theory that has to do with this unknown property of gravity. One of the two. Okay, I personally am an Occam's razor kind of gal, and I think that it's far more likely that there's human error in the timeline than that there is that the moon sped up for 300 years and then stopped speeding, then went back to its original spin. I'm sorry, you know, that's to me, it's like, well, I think it's probably the timeline, guys. I think there's probably something wrong with the timeline, and this is how they started to unravel the whole thing. You know?
Well, let me ask you this question. So if the timeline theory, the false chronology theory, turns out to be correct, then things that we've been taught occurred in ancient history really occurred far closer to our own lifespan, lifetime.
Absolutely. Those things that actually did occur, yes.
So that's interesting. So that brings prehistory actually closer to us.
Means that the last 200 or 300 years has been, and I believe this, Chanter, I think I have enough evidence to convince myself that the last 200 or 300 years has been a massive mind fuck, a brainwash, okay? Absolute saturation in what they don't want us to remember, what they want us to divorce us from, yeah? And if you think about how easy it is to do over a few generations, if you can get kids sitting in rows in schools, you could tell them anything you want, dude, anything, yeah? And a couple of generations later, it's truth, it's history, okay? That's where they have us, in the schools, you know? If you want, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's very interesting to me. Like I try to be honest with people. Is that like evolution, NASA, us landing on the moon, mainstream science. I accept it as true, but I'm very much aware of the fact that for me, I accept that the astrophysicist, the computer programmer, the mathematician, the this, that, and the other thing are telling me the truth. The biological science, the evolutionary scientist or anthropologist is telling me accurate information. Now, it feels distinct and different to me than the move of the true believer looking to the Bible or the Quran and saying, I accept that on faith. But for me as an individual, I have to be completely honest. Like, if someone tells me about evolution, I'm accepting a narrative that's been taught to me. And when I look back, I see they say, oh, we know this skeleton or these fossil remains. And oftentimes they'll have like a tooth, piece of the skull. And I'm looking at it going,
yeah.
I take it on faith. For me, that there's more going on there, and that they know the link up and the causal relations. Yeah. For me, say where I am, if I'm being philosophically sound and accurate and honest with myself, I've just believed what another person has taught me.
Exactly, and that's authentic. That's honest, man. Right. You really are just just saying, look, it's another belief system. I happen to feel comfortable buying into this one, but obviously, a critical mind would get that it's all just stuff that they've been telling us. I wasn't there. I can't verify, with my eyeballs. So yeah, so that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And so it is another belief system, but these are still only theories. And it's cool. It's okay if people say things like the theory of this, the theory of that, but we get so used to hearing that we don't hear the theory part anymore. We don't entertain the idea that there are other things possible. And the other thing that I think we should always remember is that there are tons of people out there who are presenting in their mind and their lives and everything is their best work, okay? And they're genuinely trying to do their best, most honest work. But if it's all based on a fabrication 200 or 300 years ago, they can't tell you the right thing. They can only, because they're only using the tools that they have. Case. Okay, but the original fabrication, in my research, exists. It exists. Okay, the original fabrication exists, and within a few centuries, you're just compounding one lie after another, after another, after another. Now, I don't know. I know an hour tends to go by pretty quick, so I don't know how much time we have left. But I want to really, if you don't mind.
No, we have as much time as you need.
Okay, if you don't mind, I would very much like to touch on the behaviorists in the 20th century, okay?
Absolutely.
There's a book out I quite recommend. It's called World as Laboratory. World as Laboratory. The first name is Rebecca. I can't remember her last name. God, I'm not doing well with that tonight. But if you look up World as Laboratory, really one of the very best treatments of the behaviorists as they've come along I've ever seen. It's a crackerjack book, and I certainly use it as some of my research. And it goes into deeply the effect of the behaviorists on the late 19th and the entire 20th century, and certainly now, beginning with the middle of the 19th century, when people were working on these things called discovering, if you will, these things called tropisms. You probably know what a tropism is, and many of you probably do, but it is that idea that, say, a plant turns toward the sun. Objects can do things as reactions to their environment, whether it's a plant. First it was a plant, then of course we moved up to Pavlov, very important man in the schools, okay, who discovered that animals will react based on outside stimuli, okay. We changed classrooms to the ringing of a bell, my friends. That's as Pavlovian, right. That's as Pavlovian as it gets, man. And then all the way, there was a fellow called John Watson in the early 20th century who spent a lifetime at Johns Hopkins discovering how to make babies fear things. Okay, that was his idea of a life well spent, okay? And discovering how to make human beings fear things. And then in the end, he ended up being a top executive at an ad company in Manhattan on Madison Avenue, because nobody knew more about point of purchase than John Watson. How do you like that? Okay. Then of course we have B.F. Skinner, and by the time we got through B.F. Skinner's work, the human being did not even meet the criteria of life anymore. We were not truly alive in Skinner's list of criteria for life. And so these are the people who are messing with our schools. These are the people who decide how people are going to learn. These are the people who decide how children what's acceptable in terms of behavior. These are the people that we've turned loose on our schools, the behaviorists. And do read that book if you get a chance to read it, because it's awesome. You won't be able to
I found the title. It's World is Laboratory. The author is Rebecca Lamov.
Lamov, there you go. One of the best books I've ever read. Yeah, one of the best books I've ever read. Get it. It's fantastic. In fact, we could have a whole discussion about that book if you want sometime, because it's awesome. And it's important. It's bloody important, that book. Anyway, okay, so that was kind of the last thing I wanted to say about the schools. I often say, if you love your children, get them out of state schools if you can. It's better to homeschool them. Most of the countries around the world know that, and that's why I say in Germany it's illegal to homeschool your children. They will send you to jail and take your child away if you attempt to homeschool your child. And that kind of a push is rearing its ugly head in the United States. The U.S. has always been... Absolutely. Yeah, it's been okay in terms of homeschooling and alternative education and things like that. I will tell you, for example, I don't ever talk about my school because because I'm still teaching, except for this term. Okay. But it's not appropriate to specify. But I will say it's in England, and it's a Waldorf school. In the United States, we refuse to have anything to do with the government. We absolutely will not associate ourselves with the government. Okay, we have a policing body for the Waldorf schools in North America that does a great job. We don't need the U.S. government coming in and getting into bed with us. In Britain, it's not the case. In Britain, they did get into bed with the government. They're called Steiner schools over there, which we really can't afford to call them in the United States, because then we become a cult of Steiner, you know. But in Britain, they do call them Steiner schools, and they accepted partnership with the British government so that they could get funding for their kindergartens. Okay. All right. What happens though is I have to follow British rules. I now have to demonstrate how everything I teach is teaching British values. Okay? Do you know what we would say to something like that in the States? We would say, get the hell out of my school. I don't have to demonstrate American values here. This is not that kind of a school. you know. But this is what happens when you hook up with the government. So when I say get your kid out of state-run schools, I don't mean go to like a charter school where they're enacting the same pedagogy and the same curriculum, but the parents are more involved. That's not what I mean at all. I mean, you need an alternative curriculum, something that's not hooked in with government curriculum. Believe me, they all get to the same place. They do. They all get to the same place. But
It
what
also
you
involves
is
things
their
like the
ability.
force, to cut you off.
That's
It also
okay.
involves things like forced vaccination.
Yes, isn't that nice? I actually have a vaccine injured child because I was stupid for a very long time. I was just like everybody else in this world, okay? And my daughter had a massively negative reaction to the MMR, which we couldn't trace for a very, very long time. And so I know what it's like to have a vaccine injured kid, okay?
Right.
And I also know what the statistics are. And I was sitting in a meeting. I was sitting in a meeting in Britain where someone came in and to talk to us about how to deal with kids with autism. And because of the statistics, 1 in 50 now, is it? Something like that.
Yeah,
And she was trying to be polite because she knew there was an American in the audience. And I said, you know what? You don't have to be polite. I know what's going on in my country. It's all about the medical profession and hooked up. It's about the medical profession hooked up with the private insurance companies and big pharma and blah blah blah. And I said, listen, at this point, children up to the age of, what is it, 10 maybe, something like that. The schedule is 72 vaccines now. 72, Chanter. I mean, come
right.
on. How can you expect them not to be injured neurologically? And I'll tell you, the gasp in that audience in England was absolutely audible because it's nothing like that in England, the schedule of vaccines. They could not believe that this was happening. Now, I will tell you right now, if you look around, look at some of the work. I belong to a political party called the Canary Party in the United States. Check it out. It is exactly the way it's spelled, Canary Party. A friend of mine started that a few years ago here in Maine, national, if not international, and it is made up of parents with medically injured children for one reason or another. They're trying to be a political force of some sort. Do you know what I mean? So they have all kinds of data, all kinds of arguments, all kinds of this and that in their databanks if you want to know anything about vaccines. And I will tell you that the only state in this country that no longer allows philosophical and religious exemptions, only medical exemptions, is California. And I don't think I don't think that's federally legal. I don't think it's legal federally.
No, the question more and more is who owns your child, you or the state. It used to be, okay, the state, you know what I mean? The state, okay, you can't beat your child. You can't discipline your child in certain ways. Okay, but then it's a creeping thing where, you're not allowed to indoctrinate them in certain religious values, and the questions become more, and it's that mission creep. So before you know it, you are living in to turn you in for thought crime.
Exactly. And this is one thing that makes me absolutely furious, because the knowledge that this is not legal, the knowledge that we have absolutely no compulsion to vaccinate our children, is being lost in this country. It's absolutely being buried in this country. People don't know that anymore. We used to know that like the back of our hands. I don't have to vaccinate my kids. I don't. But when social services comes and takes the kid out of the hospital because you wouldn't give him the Hep B, which also injured my child. Her big brother was born the year before, did not have to have the Hep B in 93. In 94, she had to have the Hep B. That's what started the whole 9 yards, okay? People don't know that that's not legal. You can refuse that. But when social services comes in and takes your baby, and then you have to fight to get it back, right?
Right.
It's not worth, most parents don't think it's worth it to lose their kid at that moment, which is another reason to try not to go to the hospital to have a baby, okay? Do it in your bathtub. I know a lot of people who do that, all right? Okay, now I'm going to get in trouble with the medical profession somehow because I'm advocating.
Well, you cannot get in trouble. No matter what you do, you're going to get in trouble.
I know. I spend my life in trouble now. But the reality is, look, if not now, when, right? That old, right. That old platitude. We got to say it. We got to say it. you're a lot younger than I am, but I belong to the bridge generation. I remember when it wasn't quite this way. And I know that the children are ill now when they were, I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times I had to go to the doctor when I was a kid. Children think that this constantly being ill and in pain and having problems and autism and all of this stuff, they think it's normal now because they don't remember when it wasn't normal. But I'm here to tell you it is an absolute aberration. Our children are sick. Our children are sick, and they're getting sicker for all kinds of reasons. But the two things I do say to people in interviews, regardless of anything else that we talk about, Chanter, is get your kids out of state school if you can. I mean, they really have set up a situation where it's really hard.
Yeah,
because everybody's working, man. Everybody's working. Nobody's home. Right? Right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
They set it up that way. And throw your TV out the window, dude. Just throw it out the window, because it was never invented for any other reason than to program you. It has no redeeming qualities. There's nothing good about it. We can't save it. Just drop it off the 4th floor and let it crash to the ground, okay?
I would. My kids will kill me.
Well, all right. Let them kill you.
They'll turn me into the federales.
I'll tell you what happened with me. I had a backpedal because I came to all of this realization when my oldest son was about 6 or 7, right? And I actually had to say to them, look, you know what? Mom was wrong. Mom made a big fat mistake. I am so sorry. But the reason that worked is because I put them in a community of like-minded parents. There was a community that goes along with these alternative schools where everybody's kind of doing the same thing. So it's not like the kid would go, but wait, Johnny's doing Xbox, and because nobody was doing it. We were all going, oh man, we can't do that. We can't do that. And I'll tell you, I backpedaled, but when my oldest son was in 8th grade, everybody in the world was playing on the machines and the Xboxes and PlayStations and stuff like that. And all of a sudden we realized that he was always at everybody else's house. Okay? So we had to make a decision right then and there. Do we want him here, maybe with all his friends? Or do we want him gone because everybody else has the stuff we won't allow in the house? So when he was in 8th grade, we actually had to make that decision when we were in 8th grade, say, look, okay, buy it. Buy the freaking PlayStation. We'd rather have him here with us. Little did we know that we were like 10 years behind on what we bought, because we don't know, But you do have to make that decision. And then he's got
the latest iteration.
Right. And then he's got a younger sister and brother. And once it's in the house, it's in the house. Okay. So everybody faces that moment. Everybody does face that moment. We can't be, we can't be precious about this and forget that the world that we're living in, but we really do need to make absolutely real informed decisions. One of the things I love to tell parents when I'm talking to them is that there is a school in Silicon Valley, a Waldorf school in Silicon Valley. You can find this little 15-minute video they made online. Please do. These are the guys who are running the software companies and and they send their kids to the Waldorf school because they know they won't be exposed to any of this crap until they're 12. They will be fully developed neurologically before they get exposed to this junk, and so they will have their imaginations intact, and they will be able to take step into their roles and create all this other shit that's enslaving the rest of us. Okay, they don't put it quite that way, but they do tell you. They do tell you very honestly that they send their kids to this Waldorf school for that reason. They don't want their kids with a phone in their hand. They don't want their kids in front of a computer. They don't want their kids playing games because they know it wrecks them if they do it before a certain age, which is not, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're raising children and you love your children more than life itself, but you don't have access to the kind of information that I just put in front of you. You're going to just do the best that you can. You're going to do the best that you can. And then if you're like me, you're going to backpedal furiously, right? I still have my youngest kids saying stuff like, well, I don't know, Mom. I really wouldn't know about that because I was not allowed to watch Barney. They still, but you know what? that was the right thing for me to do. It was the right thing for me to do, to say that was a mistake. This is bad. This is why we're all gonna go cold turkey on this stuff. Yeah, they were young enough that I got away with that, basically.
Yeah, it's tough.
So anyway, it is tough, dang it. And we don't have access to the information unless we tell each other this stuff, right? And it's a big drag when we hear it for the first time, isn't it? Because you go, oh,
I know.
You go, damn it, it's so too late. It's so too late, but we still got to say it. We got to say it. We got to say it for the pregnant people and the people whose kids are 2 or the people whose kids are 6, So, anyway, is there anything else, my friend?
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
I think we had a good run.
Yeah, you want me to say some stuff about where people can find me?
Absolutely,
okay with that?
absolutely. And then I'm gonna send me the PayPal link, so I'll put it in the description of the video below.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm gonna say that right out loud. I work for a living. You guys all know that. I teach, and my youngest son, though, is really sick right now, and so I've had to take an unpaid sabbatical for the fall term through December. And I'm very lucky that my school let me do that. I have to say, I'm very thankful that they let me do that. And but they're not paying me for it. They're paying someone else to teach my class. So we are in need. And so I've been asking my followers and anybody else out there who understands what it's like to deal with chronically ill children to donate, because we need help right now, and we will through the end of December. And the link at PayPal is worldlectures@aol.com. That's one word, all small case. I don't know if that matters with PayPal, but it's worldlectures@aol.com. There's no donate button. You just have to go in and give to a family member. I don't know how you do it. You just give money. People are figuring it out.
Okay.
And everything matters, okay? It all matters. Keep us going through December. We will be eternally grateful. My son the one who made it possible for me to talk to Chanter tonight by fixing Google chat rooms, because I was completely lost, has some evaluations in the middle of next week that are critical, absolutely critical, in Boston. Which is a 2-hour trip from where he lives. And so we should know at the end of that time whether or not he has a spinal issue. And we should know at the end of that time whether they have to open up his spine again. So it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I'm here, because you don't let your children go through this kind of thing on their own. Anyway. But what the gift, there's always a gift, right? There's always a gift, is that I have time now to do stuff like talk to Chanter and put some things together on my channel, and maybe do a lot more writing, and just do some stuff that I don't have time to do when I'm teaching full time. So I do have a channel on YouTube. It's called Hard True, 2 words, Hard True. Do subscribe, because I have this wacky, crazy, hallucinating goal that I want to get 25,000 subscribers, Chanter, because if I do, I can use the YouTube studios that are right down the road from where I live. Right. And I could cause so much trouble if I had like a studio, right? I mean, I know they're there because when I worked from The People's Voice, I was part of the team that went to look at these studios when we were looking for a different place to land. So they're nice, anyway, they're right down the street from where I live. So I also have parked all of my videos there, because Miles Johnston screwed me over so badly with some of the best work that I've done, and I had to recollect that from some people who had downloaded it. Thankfully, it is sitting on my channel with about 20 other interviews. This will end up there when there's a link.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you'll be there. And there's also this new little vlog I've started that it's very idiosyncratic. I'm not really sure what it's going to be in the end, but I've called it 13 because 13 is the number of transformation. And I'm trying to do some stuff. I'm trying to chat with people so they know who it is that they're talking to. and I'm trying to present some deeper conversations about the things that are difficult to embrace, like the false chronology, just stuff, you know, and so I welcome all the comments, but unlike Chanter, if you're going to be a bore or, you know, because I know you talk to anybody, you like engaging with some of these guys. I know you do because you've said that, but I don't.
No one will
So,
talk to me. I talk to whoever I can get.
yeah, well, if you're going to be a bore.
And now I got you my celebrity.
Yeah, if you're going to be a bore or you're going to be a troll, I will kick your ass right off. I will not. If you got some constructive stuff to say, I am all ears, absolutely. But I am way past the point of putting up with crap. I mean, I've had you, and you will people who will start trying to make your life hell, and I'm just not going to do it anymore.
We're there, sister.
Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it. You know, because their whole job is to defame you and to attack you personally and to eat up all your energy and your time.
Oh, yes.
That's their whole job. So there's no point in engaging them. Yeah. And your channel is your channel. So my channel is my channel. So I'm reserving. I will keep the comment section open. Some people have just shut their comment section down because they can't take it anymore.
They can't take it.
No. But I'll keep mine open, and I love to. I'm very personable. I respond on. I respond on my Facebook channel. On Facebook, yeah, I got a Facebook page, an author's page, Cara St. Louis, and I have a magazine actually that's been a bit neglected, but it's still worth looking at. It's called Vortex, and you can get there by going to www.vortexcourage.me. There are about 500 articles up. There's some stuff in there that Kaltzvela put up. I mean, there's stuff up there from everybody you can think of. Mike, this will be controversial probably, but oh God, Gilad Atzmon, one of my best buds. I love that man. He gave me. Do you know who Gilad is? He's a world-class saxophonist, and he is he's an expatriate from Israel, and he does a lot of talking about Palestine. So he's got lots of enemies and lots of friends, and I love him. He's amazing. Gilad Atzmon sells out the London Jazz Festival every year. He's awesome. So he's got stuff up there. Anybody you can think of has contributed. So go check out the channel. Also, sample chapters of my books I've put up there every once in a while. So you can contribute if you want, Chanter, if you want to do some writing.
Hey.
You can. It's an open forum for.
It's my dirty little secret.
Hence the videos. Anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, you went through law school and memorized it all. Are you dyslexic? Is that what you're telling me? And you memorized the whole thing?
No, I'm not. I wish. I don't know. I've got no idea. I just faked it the whole way.
So you've got a good memory. Okay, that's good.
That's it.
That's good. So have I done it all? I think that's it. I got the lectures.
It's impossible to do it all. Your research, I think we're going to have you back. There's so much more to talk
about.
Yeah,
we'll talk about
intelligence black goo.
Yeah, we'll talk about a lot.
The people there are lots of things to talk about.
Yeah, good stuff, right? Anytime. You've been a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you.
That's it. Hey. I do my best.
Well done.
You've been an absolute, and I'm glad this happened. I'm very happy that this happened. I think you contributed a lot. So there you go. And now you know how to use Google Hangouts. So
that's what you think. Oh, sucker! No, I'm gonna have to get my kid to set me up on. You're such a sucker. I have nothing. I have no technical nothing in my body. I'm a Waldorf teacher, man.
If you got the kids around, who needs a technical skill? You like,
listen.
You know.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we'll do it again because I really enjoy talking to people.
We will. Absolutely.
Well done. Good show. Good show. Okay, bye.
I think so. Take care. Bye now.
Oh no! See, this is the thing where I can't turn it off. You've noticed that on 13, right?
If you hover over there you go. There she goes. Okay. Hey, how you doing, Cara St. Louis? How'd the interview go? The technical foibles notwithstanding, I'll tell folks what I had to do tonight, just as a funny little aside on the back end here. So I get here and I realize that I've got my star interview is going to happen. After weeks of preparation, I'm actually going to get Cara St. Louis to be interviewed on my channel. I get here and realize that I've left my webcam at home. left my webcam at home. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I set up the Google Hangouts on my computer. Then I sent the link to me via email, and I answered on my phone. I hope it all worked out okay. I hope the sound was okay. I hope everything was fantastic. I love y'all. I know it's cliche, and I know some people think that that's tacit manipulation of your heartstrings. Deal with it. I love you. I gotta go. My wife is calling me. I'll see you guys later. Take care, all. Adios.